the sacral plexus, swadhisthana chakra. At the point of your genitals is the sacral plexus, swadhisthana chakra, the original abode of Kundalini. From the Lalita Sahasranama, verses 104 to 105. Swadhisthānam bhujagada chaturvaktra manohara Shūladhyayutha sampanna Pītavarnāti garvita Medonishthā madhuprīta Bandinyādi samanvita Dathyannāsakta hridaya Kakini Rupadharini. The literal meaning.
Excuse me. Sorry.
The literal meaning, the Devi in Swadhisthana Chakra has 4 faces. Chaturvaktra Manohara. She is of yellow color. Pītavarnāti Garvita. And is holding a spike. She is situated in the body fat, Medonishta, likes honey, Madhuprita, and is surrounded by Bandinya and other attendant energies, Bandinyadi Samanvita. The Devi likes victuals with yogurt and her name is Kakini. Dathyannāsakta hridaya Kakini Rūpadharini. The esoteric meaning. This is the literal meaning which we just now read. Now the esoteric meaning. From an ant to an elephant, anything with consciousness has 2 things in common without fail. The desire to live and the desire to copulate. In fact, it is unfair to call them desires. They are not desires but 2 core principles of evolution of nature. This is how nature has grown. This is how species have evolved and progressed. There is a natural attachment, a clinging to life that comes from our desire to live. We want to live forever and we want to be happy in our life and pursuits. To feel that happiness, we constantly cling to everything we build or acquire. We don't want to lose our wealth or our loved ones. We don't want any suffering, but no growth is possible without letting go. Whatever we wish to attain, we have to give up something in return. We give up our childhood to be youthful. We sacrifice our time to attain our goals. The more we are able to let go, the more we are able to accomplish. And this leads to the second desire. The desire to copulate, the need for a sexual union at its core is the most liberating emotion. A man and a woman remove their coverings. They bare themselves to each other. There is no pretense, no artificiality. In that moment of climax, there is no ego, there is no clinging. It's all about letting go. Even though they are united physically and emotionally, both the partners have surrendered to each other to experience one of the most divine pleasures, orgasm. It is not possible to reach an orgasm if you have inhibitions, if you have fears, and no matter how much you resist or hold back, nature propels each living entity towards a sexual union. Out of our ego and conditioned beliefs, we may label it as good or bad, sacred or sacrilegious, but nature knows that it is only in letting go that you experience the greatest liberation, that you grow and help nature grow. Swa means self and adhisthana means place. Swadhisthana or the sacral plexus refers to the normal, natural abode of Kundalini. This chakra is located at the point of genitals. It is from here that we express our sexual energy, procreate, and derive the pleasure of sex. Kundalini, however, has descended to the lowest chakra because it has drunk the nectar from Sahasrara, the thousand petal lotus in our brain. No pleasure, not even sexual pleasure, can be experienced in the absence of a brain. It instructs, drives, controls, and experiences all pleasures. Therefore, both our brain and our sacral energy must in be harmony to experience any sexual pleasure. A person who is brain dead cannot be aroused, for example. The need for sexual pleasure is so innate and great in each individual that while it is our creative fluid, it is often also the cause of our great downfall. It makes us cling to our partner. We want a sort of exclusivity. We want to own them and mold them the way it suits us. In that desire for exclusivity, emotions of jealousy, hatred, and envy arise. We lose control of ourselves. The good in us gets covered like clouds cover sun. Classical texts state that because Kundalini drank the nectar from the Sahasrara chakra, it lost control of itself and went down all the way to Mooladhara, even slipping down from its own place, which is the Swadhisthana. Mooladhara also means the root foundation, the absolute basis. This represents the reality of our world where having sex is simply a matter of slacking lust for most people. Forgetting the potency of this creative power, our modern society has mostly reduced this union to a mere act where more and more people are looking outside their relationships for more sex. We no longer look upon harnessing this creative energy to experience a union at all levels physical, emotional, and spiritual. Instead, most of us around are just happy with just the physical aspect. They are happy to come and go, if you see what I mean. They are not to be blamed though, because they have not yet experienced the complete union, a meeting of the bodies, minds, and souls all together at the same level. It is not taught in any school. Sex is a private act, oneness is not. It's a cosmic dimension. This is where Kundalini and the sacral plexus come into play. Lalita Sahasranama states that there is a four-faced Devi who presides over this chakra. In reality, this Devi represents four aspects of sexuality and four aspects of the human mind. We'll see what are the four aspects of sexuality. Sex is not just a physical act. In fact, most of the sexual pleasure is a cerebral act. It occurs in the brain. Whether sex is in the mind, in words, or in actual physicality, not everyone does it the same way. The manner in which you perform a sexual union and the subsequent fulfillment you derive from sex depends upon where you are on the spiritual ladder. Tantric texts such as Nitya Tantra, Kubjika Tantra, Kularnava Tantra, Mahanirvana Tantra categorize all men into three segments based on their temperaments. They are Divya, which means divine, Veera is valiant, and Pashu, the animal. However, when it comes to sexuality, there is a fourth temperament too called Manushya Bhava, the human sentiment. Any sexual act is generally performed in one of these four tendencies of Divine, warrior, human or animal?
The animal way. From the Sanskrit word pash, which means chain or fetter, comes the word pashu, an animal. The one who is chained to any habit, thought, or desire is a pashu. For an animal, sex is not an emotional need, but a base carnal desire, a pure biological need. A man who enjoys sexual union in the pashu bhava will be rough and violent in his act. The animal way does not concern with the feelings of the partner. It is simply a matter of satiating their lust. To a man or a woman in the animal sentiment, they can sleep just about with anyone. They don't have to be in love. They don't need to feel love. Just like a dog will happily take a piece of bread from anyone, a sexual animal is only looking for a piece of flesh. They will extinguish themselves as ably in a brothel as much as with their partner. The basis of this relationship is only sexual gratification. Animals simply look for an avenue to allay their sexual thirst. They can drink from any pond. A human being with similar tendencies is the equivalent of a pashu. He or she just has to get to the climax regardless of who the partner is. And in doing so, he won't mind hurting the other person physically or emotionally. The human way. The word manushya means one who takes ashya, refuge, and manas, mind or heart. A step above from pashu is the manushya bhava, the human sentiment. While animals too show emotions, we are a lot more evolved and complex. In the human way, you need to feel love for the other person and you need to feel loved back before you can entertain the thought of sleeping with them. How fulfilled you feel depends on a myriad of feelings and sentiments, including love, bonding, attachment, and a sense of belonging. You don't look upon the other person as an outlet for your lust. Instead, you wish to love them and be with them. You want to make a difference in his or her life, and in return, you yearn for their attention. You wish to be loved back. You crave for reciprocation. This gives you a sense of belonging and attachment. You want to be everything to them and vice versa too. Our animal instincts are so innate in us that for the majority out there, it's hard to love in manushya bhava alone. Most of us alternate between the animal way and the human way. At times, when animal instincts take over, one can be very rough during an intercourse. Just like animals look upon a mating partner in heat, most men can simply evaluate another woman lasciviously without feeling an ounce of love for her. No matter how many people we sleep with, we are not animals after all. We are humans, and therefore we can never feel that sense of completeness and fulfillment with physical intimacy alone. Somewhere, our emotional and spiritual thirst is far greater than our sexual appetite because we are spiritual beings. Hence, when we rise above our animalistic tendencies, we look upon and require sex in the human way. In such a state of mind, manushya bhava, sexual union quenches our emotional and sentimental thirst too. It fulfills our great and deep-seated desire for companionship and togetherness. The warrior way. Vira bhava is the sentiment of a warrior. In Rudra Yamalam, Vira is defined as a tantric adept who is just one step below Divya Bhava, divinity. In Rig Veda, a Vira is a term given to progeny. The one who can subdue enemies is a Vira, but above all, the one who harnesses his creative fluid, Virya, is Vira. Creative fluid is referred to the reproductive fluid in both men and women, the fluid that make men virile and women fertile. In Vira Bhava, one of the two partners is always dominant. Sexual union in this bhava serves a twofold purpose. First, the dominant partner feels a sense of victory like a warrior. The more they are in control, the more gratifying it is for them. Second, they feel elated by winning over their partner with a display of their physical strength and endurance. Unlike the human way, a warrior has a greater sense of detachment. For him, sexual union is a part of life, an aspect of their sadhana. Just like a warrior feels protective about his king, the one in Virabhava feels protective about their partner. This sense of protection should not be confused for possessiveness. A warrior protects out of a sense of duty and not attachment. An animal sexual union lasts no more than a few tens of seconds. A human's may last for a few minutes, but the one in Virabhava gains satisfaction only by prolonging the duration of their physical union. Unlike the animal way, Virabhava is not just about satiating lust, and unlike the human way, it is not out of some deep urge for belongingness. Virabhava is about being there for the other person as their strength and support. It is about being the one they can rely on for security. The final stage in sexual consciousness is the divine way. An animal wants to slake, human wants to possess, warrior wants to protect, but divine sets everything free. The divine way. Krishna would sit by the banks of the midnight blue river Yamuna, with moonbeams gently falling on his serene countenance, on the trees, on the river. Everything would be softly lit like love. Love is a soft emotion, a gentle expression. He would start playing his flute. The divine blow from his pure lips would make a hollow flute sound most mellifluous. The music of life would come alive, and love would dance to its tune, sending all gopis into a trance. Leaving their homes, husbands, children, cattle, and belongings behind, they would come running to Krishna. Whatever they were doing, they would simply drop it and follow the hypnotic sound of the flute. They wanted to give everything they had to Krishna. The gopis would anoint him with sandalwood paste. Some would garland him with fresh flowers and offer him betel leaves. Some gopis would press his legs, while some others would gently comb his hair. They would admire his flute, for Krishna always kept it close, for he would touch his flute with his lips. They asked the flute that what good karma it did, it got to be. They asked the flute that what good karma it did that it got to be Krishna's flute. I emptied myself, said the flute. I do not retain anything. I don't cling. I have surrendered completely, and I simply allow myself to be played whenever he wishes. I never speak. Only he speaks through me. The gopis, like the flute, had completely surrendered to Krishna's will. There was no jealousy, no envy among each other. There was no clinging because they were there to serve Krishna and not to own him. He was not the pashu, slaking lust, manusya, possessiveness, or the virabhava, protective. It was the divyabhava, freedom. Divyabhava, the divine temperament, is the ultimate stage in the evolution of sexual consciousness. For the one operating in Divyabhava, engaging in a sexual act is only an extension, an expression of love. This bhava was exemplified by Krishna with the gopis. As you progress on the path of awakening of the Kundalini, you learn to channelize your sexual energy. You become a giver. You have no demands, and your joy only comes from giving all your love and joy to the other person. You offer your body, mind, and soul in Divyabhava. A sexual union is not to gratify any personal urges, but to unite in love at all levels. Only 3 types of people experience Divyabhava in a sexual union. First is the completely selfless person who is simply playing the role of a giver with utmost compassion and care. Such a person, when making love, is only concerned about making his or her partner complete. Their own gratification and joy comes from giving love and security to the other person. Like Krishna, his love is the purest, devoid of any attachments. Second is someone who has totally surrendered in love. This person no longer has any personal preferences. There is no personal agenda. He or she has placed the other person on the altar of their heart. This person is in a sexual union because they want to completely offer absolutely every ounce of whatever they have. Like gopis, they want to serve and be the strength of the other person. Once gopis took Krishna to be their divine lover, they surrendered unconditionally. This surrender is a sublime form of bhakti. The third type of person who can make love in a divya bhava is a tantric adept. Completely detached and with no desire to prolong the sexual union, a yogi wants to fill his consort with divine energy so she may experience a deep sense of oneness even long after the sexual embrace. It's a spiritual hangover. Shiva unites his Shakti in this divya bhava. In divya bhava, the boundaries between male and female blur before disappearing completely. It doesn't feel like you are making love to another person. Instead, it feels that you are with your own extension, your mirror self, your counterpart. A man is exploring his own feminine side, and a woman is exploring her own masculine aspect. The right brain is getting in touch with the left brain. Creativity is gaining oneness with logic. It is mind looking at itself. The four-faced Devi in the sacral plexus also refers to the four aspects of the mind. A lot happens in our mind from the moment a thought emerges to the time we actually act on it. No matter how impulsive an action is, it invariably goes through four phases. These four phases are the four aspects of our mind.
The four aspects of mind. The four aspects of the human mind are collectively referred to as the Chatush Antakarana, the four seeds of thoughts and feelings. They are Manasa, which is the mind, Buddhi, intelligence, Chitta, consciousness, and Ahankara, conception of one's individuality. Any desire or thought first springs in our mind. If we don't do anything about it, the thought ends right there. This is the lifespan of a thought. But if we are unable to let go of that thought, it is passed on to our consciousness. We start to deliberate and cogitate on the thought, reflecting on its pros and cons, its benefits and costs. Consciousness, though, cannot make a decision on its own. Once we are done with the deliberation, the thought is passed on to the third aspect of our mind, that is intelligence. Intelligence makes the final decision whether we are going to pursue our thoughts or not. If we decide to turn our thoughts into our reality, it gets passed on to the ego, our sense of individual existence. Our ego drives us to create and guard our individuality. It stops us from experiencing the divine union because ego is always insecure. It separates us from what is around us. Ego wants to control and change. Ego wants to control and charge. It is sacred. It is scared of surrendering. When we get hurt by anyone's actions, it is our ego that gets hurt. Sexual union is one of the most gratifying feelings because it requires that you completely drop your ego. Your sexuality, sexual conduct, and sexual thoughts, all of which can be controlled by meditating on the Swadhisthana chakra, have a direct and immediate impact on your state of mind and consciousness. The Devi holding a spike encourages the seeker to build one pointed concentration on this chakra. Bandhini and other attendant devis refer to the bandhas, locks practiced in yoga to augment your practice of meditation on chakras. Bandhas are not required, and personally, I don't do them. I have always focused on pure meditation. This Devi is established in body fat and likes honey and food with yogurt. It means while practicing meditation on this chakra, you should regulate your diet to include more honey and yogurt. Meditating on this chakra has a positive influence on all physical ailments linked to body fat, including problems with cholesterol and blockages in the arteries. Devi's name of this chakra is Kakini, and the seed syllable becomes Kam. So, any feedbacks, thoughts?
I was thinking about, all the different states he's saying, the 4 different states. And then also like about any kind of sexual union that you're dropping your ego, or like, I guess he's not saying that in all the 4 states. What do you think?
You mean dropping the ego?
Yeah.
In all the 4 states?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's talking it in all the 4 states. Yeah,
Like-
for a moment, it's very like a momentary experience of dropping the ego and letting go. That's why probably that is the natural instinct in each being, right? Whether irrespective of the species, you get a glimpse of the ultimate by this sheer physical act, but you don't know how to retain that. There is something like, so you show the biscuit to the dog and you keep walking, it will come behind you, right? That kind of a trick of the existence.
I was just thinking about like Hollywood and all these materialistic things that use sex so much to sell. And
Yeah,
like, it's
human
just,
beings
really
have
capitalizing on that natural
yeah,
urge, but
human beings have taken everything to weird extremes.
yeah, that's true. But back to that momentary glimpse of the ultimate, they talk about in different meditation trainings that after orgasm, that there's this moment of like the clarity of the mind is really available at that time as a time for meditation. But so like death, orgasm, deep sleep, or these different sleep states, these different states of the mind. It's interesting that either delineate orgasm or just after as like states that are, these possible windows of illumination. Definitely different state of mind.
Right. So this union can happen within oneself. Like the physical act of copulation, you need two, the male and the female, right? The masculine and the feminine aspects. But when you masturbate, it's just you. At the physical level, I am mentioning. But when you talk about these four different levels, from the Pashu, from the animalistic level to the human, to the warrior and the divine, right? In all these levels, the sexual act has a different dimension of experience. It's not the same. The glimpse that you get in a physical act is different from the prolonged tantric way of experiencing the sex, right? And like how I was mentioning about the masturbation for oneself, in a meditation you can have the divine sex happen within yourself, the union of the sacral and the brain, right? The sahasrara. So that's what they call the Kundalini rises up and reaches the crown. The sahasrara drinks the nectar from there. That is the sexual union within the self at a divine dimension. What do you think about that?
I'm thinking about the different ways it can be divine, whether it is offering our own experience on like the altar of the divine, like every moment being an offering, like our life being an offering, or something more literally of like visualizing the different deities and the different chakras, and then as you're arousing the Kundalini and then nectar is flowing, then that being an offering to the different deities and your chakras. I'm just thinking of like the different ways that this energy can be divine, especially if you're not, like if you're saying this is like that you can experience it on your own. If you're not seeing the divine in someone else, in your partner, in your mirror, but if it's just your own experience.
Yeah, so you can see the divine within yourself and outside of you. At a certain level of consciousness, the inside and outside merges, they are one and the same. Outside is not separate from you, like how we are all interconnected. We are not separate. So when that union is experienced, so then it doesn't make a real difference. Every experience is happening within, whether it be with another person or within oneself. Both ways, the experience is inside, right? Yeah, I like the way he explained the chakras, the swadhisthana, the literal meaning, and the esoteric meaning, especially. It's very beautifully narrated and quoting the Lilita Sahasranama, which very beautifully again, describes about the chakra. Okay.
So we're talking about the meaning of the words. The
Swadhisthana.
Yeah. So the abode
Of the self.
Of the self. And you're saying
That is from where you originated.
Mm-hmm.
The sacral center, the procreation happened.
Yeah.
From there.
And I was kind of slightly disagreeing with that because I was thinking it's more the abode of your, like the realization of your own divine energy. Like when you say where we originated, then I'm thinking of it as like the womb where you grew. But when I'm thinking about the abode of this energy, that where the Kundalini is, like the Kundalini's house, the Kundalini is the path to realization, right? It's like where we originate from. Then I'm thinking about the womb. But I don't feel like that's where we originate from. Like physically, that's where we grew, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the origin of our soul, no.
See, you cannot separate Swadhisthana from Muladhara, or Manipuraka from Swadhisthana, or Anahata from Manipuraka. All these chakras are not separate, they are all interconnected.
Who's trying to separate?
No, whoever. So, if the procreation has to happen from the Swadhisthana level, even before that, the survival from the Mooladhara has to be there, right? Then an urge, a natural urge to sustain life, to procreate, comes the next.
And they say that's why we take rebirth again, because we're drawn to the act of having a body, we're drawn to the act of sexual union, so we're somewhere out there viewing and wanting a body, and then we are seeking that to reincarnate, and then finding our parents in union for this desire to have a body, this desire again, craving this kind of union or this kind of experience that brings us back into the cycle of rebirth. Just a strong urge to bring you back from a place where we have so much more possibility to really get liberated when we don't have a body. But again, we're craving so much to have a body, to have all those familiar sensations from what they say, at least in Tibetan teachings, about what happens when we die.
So when a child is born and it grows up, the body grows from the small baby size to and fully grown adult. It is the same person, same individual, right? The individual, the self is the same. The ego, the identification is continues to be the same. The core, at the periphery, you might be a doctor. Maybe that's how the later stages you identify with many things. That's different, but all these different ages, the person remains the same. Same way, the chakras or even the Kundalini, in this language, when the Kundalini races through the different chakras, from Manipuraga, so he says after it has tasted the nectar, it has fallen even further down from Swadhisthana to the Mooladhara, to the survival level, right? And then again this same growth from Swadhisthana to Manipuraga to Anahata, the emotional, and then the creative, and then the psychic, and the self-actualization. And then again the cycle, when the the cycle of life and death, by birth and death. So there is a cycle of falling back again to the Mooladhara, and the journey back to the Sahasrara. So it's a cosmic dance.
What is he speaking of? Like this, when the Kundalini is jumped from the crown chakra, Sahasrara, and then falls all the way back even below the abode of the self, all the way to the base. At what point is he referring to about when our Kundalini has already had this nectar, and then do you think that's talking about before we're born again?
So it is like is the egg or the chicken which came first, right? You cannot answer that question. You cannot define a beginning or an end when it is a cycle. It's a circle, it's a vicious cycle. So it has met, the Kundalini has reached the Sahasrara, tasted the nectar, again falls back to Mooladhara. So which happened first, we cannot define. First you tasted the nectar and fell down, or you're already down there and you reached up, right? It's like the cycle of birth and death again.
It reminds me of this like Kunta Zangpo's prayer, the prayer of Samantabhadra, when at first we're all just one with Kunta Zangpo, Kunta Zangmo, Samantabhadra, Samantabhadri, the primeval Shakti and Shiva. I would say it's probably talking about the same cosmic divine primordial couple. So everything is at one with this, and then slowly from whatever oscillating sense of separateness or self, we start to identify as a separate entity from this like primordial couple. So perhaps that first taste of the divine nectar was when we were still one with these primordial
That's true, yeah.
And then we have fallen down into these different existences because of feeling separateness, feeling a difference between self and other, instead of being in this state of union, and that we're seeking to rejoin back.
And according to the Vedantic philosophy, this falling back and experiencing the separatedness, it's all an illusion. It's not for real. It's like a dream,
The cosmic game, the cosmic dance.
Yeah. So we had never been separated from that blissful oneness. It's just that some screen is obstructing, which is the mind, obviously. Right, yeah. We'll see next Manipuraka what is in store. That was interesting.
Mm-hmm.